So, Rapid Fire is a 1992 film starring Brandon Lee, and for context, this is the second to last film that he did. So it's the one that he did before The Crow, basically. And at this point in his career, he seemed like he was upcoming. I mean, he'd done some films that weren't hugely appreciated when they came out, but obviously after he passed away in 1993, people were going back and revisiting his movies, which by then would have been available on home video, and they kind of found a bit of a new level of success on there, which is unfortunate that that's what it took for his movies to become a little bit more popular, even if it was a cult status. This film is a typical case in point. It's perfectly fine, don't get me wrong, but in contrast to some of the other movies that were coming out at the time in the same genre, whether or not it was John Woo's movies over in Hong Kong or China, whichever, and obviously the stuff that was going on in the USA with Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Van Damme, and all those other guys. This was a movie that, in contrast, maybe was a bit of a lesser version, but you can see potential for Brandon Lee, obviously, which is again very sad that he passed away anyway, but that it happened just before he really did manage to establish himself. Now, this film, the general gist of the plot is he's not a nobody, but he's not like involved in anything too dangerous in his own life. But he witnesses a murder while he's out at a party, and there's these two rival drug gangs that kind of involved. So they want to take him out basically because he was a witness. The feds are actually involved as well. So although he's in some kind of witness protection program where he starts to get into that, the feds try to kill him as well because they're implicated in this, and all hell breaks loose. He's then introduced to one of the good cops, played by Powers Booth, who's very good in this film. The late Powers Booth, he passed away a few years ago. Really good actor, and this is one that he's very good and memorable in as well. He's a good guy, obviously, as I say, and it's quite interesting because it's not a buddy cop thing, because Brandon Lee's character isn't a cop in this movie, but his backstory is that his father, no, not played by Bruce Lee, before you ask, his father in the movie was killed. You see this in flashbacks in the Tiananmen Square massacre a few years before this film came out, and so he's got this kind of missing, well, a void in his life. The Powers Booth character kind of plays like a father figure to him. Obviously, he's kind of protecting him, and there's a bit of friction between the two. But at the same time, in sort of similar keeping with buddy cop movies, you got these two guys, and there's kind of like a dynamic between the two of them. And in this one, it's kind of a father-son almost relationship. So it's quite nice how it plays out as well. There's a bit of emotion to this, but it doesn't go too far, I don't think, in that it's cheesy or anything like that. But good film, perfectly enjoyable. I recommend it. Now, what I'm going to do for this video, unlike the previous ones, I'm going to bring my co-review of The Core into this, because we had an SJS quite recently and watched this film. He hadn't seen it before, and we've got a few things to say as well. So what I will do is I will cut over to me and him having a chat about this, and we can get into this further.
Obviously, we've been talking a bit about Brandon Lee on this channel recently. Or I have, but now we have The Core.
Yes.
So, a couple of weeks ago, we had an SJS, and we were watching Rapid Fire, the film with Brandon Lee. You hadn't seen this one before, had you?
I think I might have done, but I think it would have been a very long time ago.
Yeah.
I remember because I remember like one of the fight scenes where he like kicks like a fridge door into somebody. Like, you know, when they're fighting in like the kitchen against those two FBI agents.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's literally been like I may have like rented it once on like DVD in the fucking 90s or something.
Yeah. Wow, your DVD in the 90s. That's
To be fair. Fucking video.
Yeah, to be fair, I think I just got my first DVD player in the last week of 1999. It was like Christmas '99, so technically
I think we're
just
talking much earlier 90s there. Like,
yeah, it's it.
literally, I would gone to like Plaza or something to rent it.
Yeah, so it would obviously. I mean, point there as well is this was more a film that people got to see on videotape back in the day, following the death of Brandon Lee, because he wasn't somebody that was terribly appreciated when he was doing movies for the few that he did. But obviously, after he died, there was a renewed interest in a lot of them. So people went back and watched films like Showdown in Little Tokyo, and they became a bit more of a success on videotape. And Rapid Fire would be one of them.
I mean, that can be the way sometimes. Like, that's how a lot of the cult classics became cult classics. It's like they didn't do very well on release. It's more they got found like either on like, late night television and stuff, or they'd be found like with, oh yeah, what's that in the video store? Oh yeah, Brandon Lee. I know. I've heard about him. He like died recently. Like, yeah, what's that about?
Exactly, yeah. It's not a bad film. It's always nice to go back to films when they were 90 minutes, unlike nowadays where it's like 2.5 hours at least.
Yeah,
But yeah,
sometimes it works being longer, and sometimes it just really doesn't.
yeah. So with this one, obviously does quite a bit more martial arts than most actors, back then. Like he was. What I mean is, it wasn't like stunt doubles and stuff, or he wasn't like an actor that, for example, Keanu Reeves going into the Matrix was like trained to do it for that film. It was something given his background, his father Bruce Lee. He was naturally adept at, so he brought that to the movie. And that's a plus point for this as well, because it's good to see when he's doing the stunts. It's clearly him. So there's obviously on the channel, because the reason I've been talking about Brandon Lee quite a bit, it ties in with the fact that as we're recording this in a couple of weeks, we're getting in the UK the release of the Bruce Lee box set by Arrow Video on Blu-ray, on 4K Blu-ray. So I've been talking a little about the things before I watch those movies, some of the other things that kind of tie in with it, like documentaries and Brandon Lee's movies. So I've talked about Showdown in Little Tokyo, Laser Mission, Rapid Fire here, but also Legacy of Rage, which was an interesting one. You haven't seen that one, have you? Legacy of Rage.
To be honest, before we were talking about this, I actually only thought he'd done like 2 films. Like, I was vaguely aware of he'd done something called Rapid Fire, and yeah, The Crow, and that was it. Like, I didn't actually realize he'd done a couple more.
Yeah, well, me and you watched Showdown in Little Tokyo. Maybe I seem to remember us watching that like 10 years ago or something. It's a good film that I've reviewed that recently in the last couple of months. And there's a steel book that's quite interesting. If you want to go back on the channel and watch that. But yeah, like you say, there was Laser Mission, which I've talked about as well. That was like I think that was a proper film. It kind of comes across like a TV movie, but part of that is because the version we've got in the UK on DVD is very badly cut down. There's stuff cut out of it, and also the quality on the DVD is terrible. Apparently, if you watch that, a proper version of that is not as bad. But that's another one.
Look,
The
it's
only
a
one.
film. It's just a normal film.
Yeah. But yeah, no. The only film that I haven't seen of Brandon Lee's was Kung Fu, which was a tie-in or I don't know if it was a reboot, a full reboot or a soft reboot or whatever. Not that that was even a thing back then. With David Carradine, obviously based on the Kung Fu TV series. Not seen that.
It was
That's the
supposed to
first
be
thing.
Bruce Lee, but they decided, like, nah, we can't market like an Asian guy.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. That was what was thought. I mean, it was unfortunate because I don't think it was true. I think they could have had a very successful. I mean, it evidently was true because Bruce Lee obviously went to China, made movies there with a Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, and then came back because of the popularity of those in America. And then there was a whole Bruceploitation genre after that. So I think if they had done that, it probably would have been more successful than they'd anticipated. But Brandon Lee did a movie of it in the mid-80s. I think that was actually the very first thing that he did. I haven't seen that. I'm not too interested in that. But the other stuff's been good. And Rapid Fire, like we say, pretty good action film. It's got an interesting spin on the sort of buddy cop dynamic as well, because you've got him, although he's not a cop, but the Powers Booth character is, and the two of them have a bit of kind of play between the two of them, and it's more a father-son dynamic, isn't it? Like a surrogate father almost.
Yeah, because his dad were like killed, like trying to stop a riot or something.
Yeah, in Tiananmen Square, I think it was, which would have been a few years before. So this was the last film that he did before The Crow. You can see his acting, his confidence in his acting as well in this kind of shines through a bit more than maybe he did in some of his earlier ones. But that's all the Brandon Lee films that I've talked about. I don't think we've missed any. I don't think there's any like crucial films that we haven't covered on the channel. Can you think of any, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, we've not got anything that's like the clones of Brandon Lee, or like, yeah,
No,
we've got Brandon Lee in this film. There's this footage from his funeral. Like, what the fuck?
yeah, that was the close of Bruce. I know, but I'm thinking there isn't anything else that we haven't maybe mentioned, is there? You know, any other films that we should maybe talk about next? Obviously, The Crow.
Yeah.
So what we'll do, we'll knock this on the head, and we'll do a follow-up video. The last video in this little series that I've been doing on the channel about Brandon Lee, all the films I've seen of his. Next, we're going to talk about The Crow, and you've probably got a bit more to say on that one. Well, I think we both do because we've seen that so many times. So,
Yeah.
right. Well, I'll cut it short there, and we'll come back for the next part, and we'll talk about The Crow.
So on the channel recently, as I say, I've been talking a lot about Brandon Lee. Films like Showdown in Little Tokyo, Laser Mission, Death by Misadventure, the documentary, and Legacy of Rage. But also I've been covering a lot of the stuff to do with the Bruce Lee 4K Blu-rays that are coming out on the 17th of July. And then there's the Enter the Dragon one that comes out in early August. As I say, if this is something that you're interested in, of course, and you want to find out more, check out the channel. This last couple of months, I've pretty much been dedicating the entire channel to just talking about this, with some of the upcoming news and so on, and also the Brandon Lee reviews as well. So I feel like I've kind of been wishing my summer away this year, which in a way is a bit of a shame. Don't get me wrong, I've been enjoying my life, but at the same time, really been looking forward to mid-July when this 4K box set comes out. All the different conversations that have been had about which version of these movies to watch, such as the Mandarin cut of The Big Boss. That seems to be one that's definitely on my list. Really enjoy these movies, and it's going to be great to see this box set when it comes out. So, of course, check back on the channel. I do intend to do a kind of unboxing review. It's going to take a bit of time to work my way through the actual box itself, but at the same time, I'm going to want to talk about it once I've got it in my hands. So I think the first video I'll be doing sometime around about Monday the 17th of July or shortly after, once I've actually received it in the post. I've got it on pre-order from Arrow Video directly. I'll be doing an unboxing video because a lot of what's good about this coming box set is the fact that it's a collector's edition. You get all sorts of other little things with it as well. It's quite expensive, £120, but I feel you do get your money's worth judging from what I've seen. So, as I say, this is something that's been talked about a lot on the channel, and I've kind of veered off on this video, just kind of end it by talking about this because obviously that's been a big deal. So, as I say, if you found this interesting, check back on the channel, check the previous videos, check our Bruce Lee playlist on the channel, and subscribe because there will be more.